Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tobian. Let me retell for you the plot of the book. Vasily Golovachev, *The Shadow of Lucifer's Wing*. Peak 1, Newcomer, Chapter 3. For a few days, everything went smoothly. Nikita tried not to quarrel with anyone and didn't pester Takeda about the murky mysteries of esotericism. But then a minor incident occurred. Once again, the post wasn't delivered to his mother, and Nikita had to go to the head of the service himself. There he found a young man of about 20 who spoke to him rudely. Nick responded with a few physical gestures, threw the guy onto a chair and warned him that if it happened again, their next conversation would be different. The young man kept silent in Nick's presence but mumbled something ominous as he left, that the different conversation might come even sooner. Later came a talk with his mother. About cosmic epochs that constitute the universe, according to ancient Indian philosophy. About how eras of flourishing and justice are followed by ages of moral decline and evil. And that the latter were now in full swing. He also wanted to meet Ksenia again and tell her everything. About the skirmish in the park, the mysterious seal of evil, the herald. The star, by the way, had already shifted down to his wrist and turned pink. It no longer bothered the dancer much, occasionally tingling or sending icy pulses. He was already thinking about seeing a beautician to have it removed. But that wasn't the only unpleasant event of the day. In the underpass, Sukhof witnessed a couple of guys snatching a hatful of money from a disabled man. They were already walking away when the dancer caught up and intervened. He demanded the money be returned and tried to handle them on his own. Unfortunately, they were in cahoots with the so-called disabled man, who struck Sukhof from behind, completely unexpectedly. Then they beat him further, until a stranger intervened. A man in a suit and tie delivered a few swift blows to the hooligans and chased them off. Then, as if out of nowhere, Takeda appeared. Nikita was left with a bruised head and vomited. But he could walk, so they headed to Takeda's home. At home, a conversation began. Tolya asked why Nick had tried to step in. Nick replied that he didn't know himself, he certainly hadn't expected a trap. He also marveled again at how suddenly his friend had appeared. Asked if he was being watched all the time. Tolya replied that he was an adept of a certain alternative system of knowledge. Magical. The conversation returned to the quartet of demons in the park. Tolya again mentioned the name of their potential organization, the Satan's Retinue. He feared the demons might have planted a transmitter on his friend. Nikita once again recounted the encounter with the paratroopers and finally confessed something he hadn't told his friend before, how their leader had described him, weak. Not for the path. You'll die. Nikita asked what that meant. His friend replied that it actually carried great meaning. And it was the truth, he was still weak and not meant for such a mission. But then again, he wasn't planning to take it on, was he? All signs suggested Nikita had stumbled into a grim situation, one he'd find hard to escape. He needed to be extremely cautious at all times. Avoid new acquaintances, steer clear of conflicts, and stay as safe as possible. Though, if it was all just paranoia and there really was no seal of evil, well, no harm done. Time would tell. His friend reminded him that 2 had died in the park, not 1, the messenger and the herald. He was deeply concerned Nikita might now be under sustained interest from the dark forces. If so, his life was at risk. He advised his friend to seriously take up martial arts, in addition to dancing. Then he left. But another doorbell rang, it was Ksenia. She had just popped in briefly, but they managed to chat. The girl offered to heal Sukhov, saying that, according to Tolya, she had the makings of a psychic. She mentioned that her fate numbers were 3 twos, calculated by Takeda. When the dancer showed her his 777s, the girl reacted strangely and became very wary. He couldn't get out of her what she found so unusual, and soon she left. But then she, along with his mother and Takeda, all called back, asking the same question, was he okay? Nick laughed it off and assured them that he was. The next day, he skipped rehearsal. He called the coach, claiming he was sick, which was partly true. But it wasn't just his bruised head that kept him unsettled. He was tormented by thoughts about all that had happened, the recent incidents. And the warnings from his friend, all those demonic secrets. He tried to touch the star, which had by now crept closer to his elbow. This time, a discharge of cold and electricity shot through his arm, neck, and head, echoing with a low hum. He realized it was best not to touch it again and wondered what it actually was. Maybe he really should get rid of it. He needed serious advice from Takeda. For now, he decided to stop by the auto parts store. He pulled the car out of the garage and set off. But the trip didn't go smoothly. He kept feeling as if someone was watching him from the back seat. A deeply unsettling sensation. Then the tire blew. The car veered, slightly colliding with a Ford and then with an old Jeep carrying a cheerful group of guys. The Ford sped away without stopping, but the guys from the Jeep weren't shy about expressing their displeasure. They stopped, dragged him out of the car, and began beating him. He was stunned at first but soon began to defend himself instinctively. Landed a few good blows. But he still took quite a beating. And then again, help arrived. 3 young men in a Volga pulled up and intervened. They beat the dancer's assailants thoroughly and quickly drove off. Sukhov thought one of them even winked at him. Then, out of nowhere again, Takeda showed up in a different car. His friend just shook his head, examining the battered dancer, and once again said he really should take up martial arts. They didn't wait for the police. Takeda replaced the punctured tire, and they quickly drove back to the city center. Tolya finally explained how the curse worked. According to him, it increased the likelihood of negative outcomes in any situation. The dancer understood and even agreed to take up fighting if his friend could find a good coach. But Takeda felt that the time for training had not yet come. Let the seal of evil discharge itself through minor troubles and traps. Let the dark forces believe Nikita hadn't actually chosen the path. So they wouldn't retaliate, but simply lose interest and forget about the dancer.